No rational species in the galaxy had ever called the Gauntlet trials fun. The test existed as a grim monument to lethality, designed by a council of warriors from worlds where simply breathing required evolutionary advantages most species couldn't fathom. Participants faced environments engineered to exploit every biological weakness, pushing mental and physical limits until something broke. The reward was minimal: ceremonial recognition and a commemorative medallion. The cost was frequently measured in body bags. Only Deathworlders ever completed it. Beings whose home planets were so inherently hostile that survival instincts ran deeper than conscious thought. For everyone else, watching the trials was entertainment from a safe distance, preferably with alcohol, which made the registration announcement all the more shocking. A Rathian administrator named Clix had been processing entries at Station Vorath 12, his four-stalked eyes drooping with boredom as he logged the usual suspects: massive Korathi bruisers, scaled Vexian hunters, the occasional Throndon whose exoskeleton could deflect plasma fire. Then something appeared on his screen that made all four eyes snap open. Humans, four of them. Team captain listed as Tyler Hammond. Clicks immediately forwarded the registration to every major news network in the galaxy. Within the hour, the story had spread like wildfire. Humans, those strange newcomers who'd barely been part of the galactic community for 30 years, had entered the Gauntlet trials. The reactions ranged from bewilderment to outright mockery. Humans were known for being peculiar. Their planet Earth technically qualified as a death world, but a low-tier one. Nothing like the nightmare landscapes of Corathia or Vex Prime. Humans were soft-skinned, relatively weak, and possessed no natural weapons beyond their oddly opposed thumbs. They were famous for two things: unpredictable creativity and an unsettling tendency to laugh at danger. Still, nobody expected them to actually show up. The observation deck of Vorath 12 was packed to capacity when the competition day arrived. Diplomats, journalists, and thrill-seekers from dozens of species had gathered for what they assumed would be a brief, educational tragedy. Betting pools opened immediately. The most optimistic wager gave the humans 8 minutes before catastrophic failure. On the arena floor, Tyler Hammond checked his gear one final time. His team stood beside him in standard-issue tactical suits that looked absurdly primitive compared to the biological armor of their competitors. Next to them, Korathi warriors rippled with muscle beneath thick hides. Vexian hunters flexed claws that could tear through steel. A trio of Throndons stood motionless, their carapaces gleaming like polished obsidian. Tyler adjusted his baseball cap backwards and grinned at his teammate. "Ready for some cardio, Davis?" Simon Davis shrugged. "Beats the gym." In the observation deck, a Selenar official named Prax took a long drink from his crystalline cup. His silver scales shimmered with satisfaction. "At least this will be over quickly," he said to his companions. "Perhaps it will teach them some humility." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the watching crowd. Humans needed to learn their place in the galactic hierarchy. They'd been lucky so far, stumbling into the greater community without major incident. But luck ran out. The Gauntlet trials would demonstrate the difference between actual Deathworlders and tourists who happen to live on a mildly dangerous planet. The arena activated with a sound like tearing metal. Environmental projectors flickered to life, transforming the vast space into a nightmare landscape. Jagged cliffs materialized above rivers of molten rock. Venomous creatures spawned in dense jungle zones. Weather systems cycled from sub-zero cold to scorching heat within seconds. Every meter of the course was designed to kill. The Korathi charged forward immediately, their massive frames bulldozing through the first obstacle, a cascading rockfall that could crush lesser beings. They roared with aggressive confidence, smashing boulders aside with pure strength. The Vexians moved like liquid predators, their scaled bodies gliding through gaps and crevices with practiced grace. When they reached the molten rivers, they simply dove in, their heat-resistant biology allowing them to swim through temperatures that would vaporize most species. The Throndons barely reacted when acid-spitting creatures attacked. The venom splashed harmlessly against their armored shells. And then there were the humans. Tyler led his team through the initial hazards at a casual walking pace. As boulders tumbled down from above, he glanced up and called out, "Heads up!" His team sidestepped the falling rocks as though avoiding puddles after rain. When they reached the molten river, instead of attempting some heroic crossing, Davis simply pointed to a narrow natural bridge formed by cooled lava. "That works." "Yeah, that'll do," Tyler said. They strolled across in single file. Halfway over, their third teammate, a woman named Riley Toretto, stopped to take a photo with her helmet camera. "My kids aren't going to believe this." Up in the observation deck, Prax leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What are they doing?" Another official, a bulky Dravorian, frowned at the display screens. "They appear to be walking." "They can't simply walk through the trials," Prax hissed, but they were. The jungle section was populated with apex predators, bioengineered killing machines that hunted on instinct. As the team entered the dense foliage, creatures began stalking them through the undergrowth. A six-legged beast with serrated fangs lunged from the shadows. Tyler casually stepped aside. The creature sailed past him and crashed into a tree trunk. "Close one," he said cheerfully. The fourth team member, a stocky man named Bryant Wash, glanced at the dazed predator. "Reminds me of my ex's cat. Same energy," Riley laughed. "Your ex had a cat that tried to kill you, constantly. Thing was psychotic." They continued through the jungle, chatting and joking, while carnivorous plants snapped at their heels and venomous insects swarmed around them. Every trap seemed to miss by inches. Every predator attacked just slightly too late or too early. The humans navigated the course as though they possessed some kind of danger-sensing sixth sense, or more accurately, as though they didn't register the danger at all. The alien teams were suffering. Two Korathi had been taken out by a superheated steam vent they'd failed to detect. The Vexians lost a member to poisonous swamps that their usually reliable senses hadn't warned them about. Even the Throndans were slowing, the cumulative stress of constant threats wearing down their legendary endurance. Meanwhile, the humans reached the course's halfway point and stopped. Tyler stretched his arms over his head. "Anyone else hungry?" "Starving," Davis said. They sat down on a convenient rock formation, pulled rations from their packs, and began eating. In the observation deck, absolute silence reigned. Hundreds of aliens stared at the screens, watching the humans have a picnic in the middle of the galaxy's most dangerous survival test. Finally, a Zelonian ambassador broke the silence. "They're cheating. They must be cheating." "How?" Prax demanded. "How could they possibly cheat? The arena systems are completely isolated." "Genetic modification," someone suggested. "Enhanced reflexes. Psychic abilities," another voice offered. "Some kind of danger precognition. Technology we don't understand. Reality manipulation. Cosmic intervention." The theories grew increasingly desperate as the humans finished their meal, packed up their trash, and continued down the course. Deep in the control room beneath the arena, the engineers were panicking. The event coordinator, a nervous Paxian named Velk, stared at the readouts in disbelief. "This is impossible. The humans should have failed by now." "Maybe we calibrated the difficulty incorrectly," his assistant suggested. "We've used these same settings for 200 cycles. They work." Another engineer spoke up, her voice hesitant. "We could increase the hazard levels." Velk turned to her, antennae quivering. "You want to alter the test mid-run? That's against every protocol we have. Do you want to be known as the team that got beaten by a species who treats the gauntlet trials like a nature hike?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "Double everything," Velk said quietly. "Triple it if you have to. Make them sweat." Within minutes, the arena's environment shifted dramatically. Storm clouds boiled across the artificial sky. Winds howled through the canyons with enough force to strip flesh from bone. The predators in the remaining zones began mutating, their bodies swelling with enhanced aggression as stimulant compounds flooded their systems. For the alien teams, the change was catastrophic. Another Korathi died when a rockslide caught him without warning. The Vexians barely escaped a sudden lava eruption that turned their route into an inferno. The Throndans, pushed beyond their limits, collapsed from exhaustion. The humans noticed the changes but seemed more curious than concerned. As a mutated beast, now twice its original size with glowing red eyes, charged toward them. Tyler cocked his head. Ah, that's new, Davis nodded thoughtfully. Definitely was not that big before. The beast roared, massive claws extended, fangs dripping with bioengineered venom. Riley stepped left. Tyler stepped right. The creature thundered between them and plowed face first into a boulder, knocking itself unconscious. Should we help it? Bryant asked, looking back at the stunned predator. Nah, it'll wake up, Tyler said. Probably with a massive headache, though. They kept walking. In the control room, Velk was pulling at his facial tendrils in frustration. This doesn't make sense. We've made it exponentially more dangerous. They're not even running, his assistant whispered. I can see that. From the human perspective, the test was getting moderately more annoying. The increased wind was irritating, and the enlarged predators were a bit concerning, but nothing they couldn't handle. Tyler had grown up in Colorado, where mountain weather could turn deadly without warning. Davis had served in the Coast Guard, where every day meant potential disaster. Riley had worked oil rigs in the North Sea. Bryant had been a wildfire responder in California. They'd all faced danger before. Real danger, not a carefully controlled test with safety protocols and medical teams standing by. This was just obstacle course with decent special effects. When they reached the lightning field, a massive plain where electrical storms raged constantly, Riley paused to admire the display. Pretty, she said. Lightning struck a tree 50 meters away, incinerating it instantly. Very dramatic, Davis agreed. Tyler studied the field for a moment, then pointed to a path that wound through the worst of the storms. That way looks like it has the most cover. They set off, using the terrain's natural features to shield themselves from the worst strikes. At one point, they found a wounded Korathi warrior struggling to move. Without hesitation, Bryant hoisted the massive alien over his shoulders. You good? He asked the shocked warrior. The Korathi could only stare. Cool, let's get you through this. In the observation deck, the remaining officials had gone from skeptical to horrified. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving. They were helping other competitors. They were treating the entire thing like a team-building exercise. Prax stood frozen, his drink forgotten. They don't fear it, he whispered. They don't even recognize how close they are to death. A Dravorian commander who'd watched her people's finest warriors fall to the trials shook her head slowly. How do you defeat something that doesn't understand it should be afraid? As the humans approached the final obstacle, a gauntlet of collapsing platforms over a pit filled with razor-sharp crystal formations, Tyler glanced back at his team. Last stretch, everyone good. Peachy, Riley said. Outstanding, Davis added. Bryant adjusted the unconscious Korathi on his shoulders. This guy's heavier than he looks, but I'm good. They crossed the platforms with the same careful but unconcerned attitude they'd shown throughout the entire test. When a platform collapsed under Riley's feet, she simply jumped to the next one without breaking stride. Nice save, Tyler called. Thanks, used to do parkour. They crossed the finish line to a mixture of stunned silence and scattered applause. Tyler set his pack down and stretched his back. Anyone else need a shower? I'm disgusting. Behind them, the last surviving Throndon crawled across the finish line and immediately collapsed. Medical teams swarmed the arena floor, attending to dozens of injured competitors. The humans barely noticed the attention. They were too busy arguing about where to get dinner. I'm saying the food court on level 7 looked promising, Davis insisted. Level 7 smelled like recycled protein paste, Riley countered. Level 9 had actual fresh food. Bryant gently set the Korathi warrior down as medical personnel rushed over. The alien looked up at him with something like religious awe. You're welcome, Bryant said, patting the warrior's armored shoulder. Drink lots of water. You'll feel better. In the control room, Velk sat with his head in his hands. Around him, engineers stared at screens showing the human's telemetry data. Heart rates had barely elevated. Stress hormones were within normal ranges. They'd walked through the galaxy's most dangerous survival challenge like it was a moderately vigorous hike. Up in the observation deck, Prax finally found his voice. They weren't cheating. No, the Dravorian commander agreed quietly. They simply grew up in a world where danger is normal, where survival isn't a test, it's just another day. How is that possible? I don't know, but I know this. I never want to fight a war against them. On the arena floor, Tyler noticed the crowd's stunned silence for the first time. He waved cheerfully. That was great. When's the next one? The question echoed through the observation deck like a death sentence. Several officials felt their legs weaken. Next one, they wanted to do it again. As the humans walked off toward the showers, still debating restaurants and making plans for the evening, the galaxy's deadliest warriors sat in shocked silence. The gauntlet trials, the ultimate test of survival, the measure of Deathworlder capability, had just been treated like casual entertainment by 5 humans who'd thought it was, in their own words, fun. The medal ceremony was brief. Tyler accepted the commemorative trophy with a grin, took a photo with his team, and then they all headed off to find that restaurant on level 9. Behind them, officials were already drafting new regulations. The difficulty would need to be increased dramatically, because if word got out that humans had strolled through the trials while having philosophical discussions about cats and coffee, the test's reputation would be destroyed forever. But as Prax watched the humans disappear into the station's corridors, laughing and shoving each other playfully, he suspected no amount of increased difficulty would matter. The humans hadn't conquered the trials through strength or endurance or special abilities. They'd conquered it through sheer, oblivious confidence that danger was just another thing that happened, like weather or traffic. And that, Prax realized with growing dread, made them far more terrifying than any Death Worlder the galaxy had ever known. The restaurant on level 9 turned out to be a converted cargo bay with decent lighting and surprisingly good ventilation. Tyler and his team claimed a corner booth with a view of the station's main throughway, where ships came and went in glittering streams of light. A nervous Quillen server approached their table, her 6 legs clicking against the metal floor. She handed them data pads displaying the menu, her antenna twitching as she studied the humans with barely concealed fascination. "You are the ones from the Gauntlet trials," she said, her translator rendering her chittering speech into flat English. "Everyone is talking about you." Tyler glanced up from the menu. "Yeah, that's us. What's good here?" The server blinked all 4 of her compound eyes. "The roasted kelma is popular, also the spiced thranta. Both are protein-based and compatible with human digestion." "Perfect. I'll take the kelma," Tyler said. "Same," Davis added. Riley ordered the Thranta while Bryant requested both, claiming he'd worked up an appetite carrying that Korathi. The server scurried away, still staring back at them like they might spontaneously combust. Davis leaned back in his seat and rubbed his shoulder. "Okay, so is anyone going to acknowledge that we're supposed to be deadly?" "I noticed the predators were trying pretty hard," Riley said, breaking apart a piece of the complimentary bread equivalent the server had left. "And those lightning strikes were no joke." "Sure, but we've all been through worse," Tyler said. He pulled up the official Gauntlet stats on his personal device. "Says here the completion rate is usually around 30%. We had a 100% completion rate." Bryant snorted. "That's because you wouldn't let me leave Riley behind when she stopped to take that photo of the lava river." "It was a good photo," Riley protested. "It was like 5 seconds tops," Davis said, defending her. Their food arrived faster than expected. The Quillen server placed the dishes carefully, then hesitated. "May I ask a question?" Tyler gestured with his fork. "Sure. Were you afraid?" The 4 humans exchanged glances. Tyler considered the question seriously. "Not really. I mean, I was paying attention, watching for hazards, but afraid." He shook his head. "Nah, the other species, they fear the gauntlet," the server said quietly. "Many die. You treated it like recreation." "Here's the thing," Riley said, pointing her utensil at the server. "Back on Earth, danger isn't some special event. It's just part of living. I worked on oil rigs where one mistake could kill everyone. Davis here pulled people out of sinking boats during storms that would have torn this station apart. Bryant ran into burning forests while everything around him exploded. Tyler grew up in mountains where the weather could kill you if you weren't careful. We're used to things trying to kill us," Bryant added, chewing thoughtfully. "This Kelmer is excellent, by the way." The server stood silent for a moment, processing this information. "You are from a death world." "Technically," Tyler said. "Low tier, they tell us. But it's home." I think, the server said slowly, your low-tier classification may be incorrect. She left them to their meal. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, watching the station traffic through the viewport. Eventually, Davis spoke up. So that Korathi guy Bryant carried, did you see his face when we finished? Like we performed a miracle, Bryant said, laughing. I just gave the guy a lift. That's the thing, though, Riley said, leaning forward. To them, it was a miracle. We were competing against people who have trained their whole lives for tests like this. Deathworlders who are supposed to be the toughest things in the galaxy. And we just walked through it. While having a picnic, Davis added with a grin. Tyler set down his fork and looked at his team. You know what the weirdest part is? They made it harder partway through. I felt it. The wind got stronger, the predators got bigger, the hazards increased, and we still just dealt with it. Because that's what we do, Riley said simply. Humans adapt. It's literally what we're best at. Adapt and complain, Bryant corrected. Don't forget the complaining. I complained a lot during that lightning section. You complained about being hungry, Davis said, which was a valid complaint. A group of aliens at a nearby table kept glancing over at them, whispering among themselves. Tyler noticed but didn't acknowledge it. After a moment, one of them, a tall Selenar with silver scales, approached their table. Forgive the interruption, the alien said, his voice formal. I am Coordinator Prax. I observed your performance today from the official deck. Tyler wiped his mouth with a napkin. Hey, something we can help you with. Prax studied them with an unreadable expression. I wanted to understand. Why did you enter the gauntlet trials? The humans looked at each other. Tyler shrugged. We saw the announcement, thought it sounded interesting. Why not? Prax repeated slowly. You risked your lives for why not? Isn't that why anyone does it? Riley asked. No, Prax said firmly. Others entered to prove themselves, to earn honor, to test their limits against the galaxy's most dangerous challenge. You entered because it sounded interesting. Pretty much, Bryant confirmed. Prax was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried something that might have been respect or possibly fear. Do you understand what you have done? The Gauntlet Trials has stood for 3 centuries as the ultimate measure of a warrior's capability. Completion is rare. Casual completion is unheard of. You have changed how the galaxy views humanity. Tyler considered this while finishing his meal. Look, we didn't mean to change anything. We just wanted to try something new, do an adventure, see what we could do. And we did pretty well, Davis added proudly. You did more than well, Prax said. You made it look easy. Deathworlders across the galaxy are questioning their own capabilities. Officials are demanding the test be redesigned. You have caused quite a disruption. Sorry, Riley offered, though she didn't sound particularly apologetic. Prax's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of amusement in his species. Do not apologize. You have reminded us of something important. Death worlds are not measured by classification levels or environmental hazards. They are measured by the beings they produce. He nodded respectfully. Enjoy your meal. He returned to his table, leaving the humans alone again. They sat in silence for a moment before Bryant spoke up. So we're famous now, apparently, Tyler said. Cool. Does that mean we get free food? Not how that works, man. Shame. They finished their meals as the station continued its endless cycle around them. Ships departed for distant worlds. Aliens of 100 species moved through the corridors, going about their lives. And in a corner booth on level 9, 4 humans sat together, laughing about the day they'd accidentally terrified the galaxy by treating its deadliest challenge like a fun afternoon hike. When the bill came, Tyler paid with his credit chip and left a generous tip. As they stood to leave, Davis paused at the viewport, looking out at the stars. You think they'll actually make it harder next time? He asked. Tyler grinned and clapped his teammate on the shoulder. Only one way to find out. They walked out of the restaurant together, already planning their next adventure, completely unaware that behind them, Coordinator Prax was already drafting recommendations that would reshape the Gauntlet trials forever, not to make it harder, but to add an entirely new classification tier, one specifically designed for humans, because the galaxy had learned an important lesson that day. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't the creature with the biggest claws or the thickest armor. Sometimes it was the being who looked at mortal peril and asked, "When's the next one?"